Dixontown property.
All right, we'll call to order pursuant to Governor Baker. The Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting, Mass General Law 30A 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the PPP Town Council is being conducted via hybrid remote participation only. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted in the council chamber, and every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided in this order. A reminder that persons who would like to view this meeting will in progress may do so by watching Southbridge Cable Access Channel 192 or by remote information noted below. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website at the http://wwci.southbridge.ma.us as soon as we are able. A roll call vote would be required to be taken under this order. Agenda item number 1, roll call. Excuse me. Councilor Adams?
Present.
Councilor Catrona?
Present.
Lazo present. Mr. Julian, a citizen member?
Present.
I'm not seeing,
Oh, hey,
I'm looking for my other citizen member.
Mr. Chair, he texted me earlier today, he's taking care of some personal business.
Okay,
He wouldn't be able to make
then
it.
he would be excused.
Yes.
Okay, we have a quorum. Moving on to agenda item number 2, review and recommend the town council FY 2022 inspections department budget in the amount of $149,531 and enter a motion to vote to submit to town council as presented. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion by Catrona, seconded by Adams. Discussion. Mr. Town Manager?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the PPP subcommittee. As I mentioned the other evening, I just wanted to remind folks watching as well as the members here, when we met the first time in EHS, in case you weren't here, I just went over the fact that when we started the planning of the FY 2022 budget, Ms. Harnois and I sat down and I issued my budget memo, and we instructed everybody to put together what we called a level service budget, which meant that people were to live within their means based on their expenses from FY 21 and only really adjust for any contractual obligations and union and non-union salaries. And we met with each one of the department heads and went through their budgets line by line. And to date, unless there was anything usual, that is what each one of the department heads submitted. Mr. Pelletier is on the line tonight. He's dialing in. He's out of the area, but his budget will be no different. I would just tell you the highlights that when we met, he said that some of the special services were going down due to the landfill closing. Some of the conference expenditures are going up due to training. They have some new personnel. Longevity is up, but overall, there's no real significant changes to his budget. And as you know, some of the monies that make up his budget are indirect costs from the landfill as well as CDBG. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would then hand it over to Mr. Pelletier for any other comments or presentation he wishes to make about his budget.
Good morning, good evening, how are you?
Where is it?
I have town manager just briefly referenced the landfill. That will actually be reflected more in the Board of Health budget. This is the As you know, the departments of the Board of Health and Building Department are joined physically, but we keep a separate budget. So this budget that is going on tonight will be just for the Building Department, Zoning Department side of the combined departments. So most of the landfill affected items will be reflected in the EHS budget, which I believe is next week. But anyhow, going down, we have a slight increase we have 3 separate salary items. First item is my assistant inspector, that would be Michael Julian. A 6.7% increase in his requested salary. That is reflective of a 2% increase and a step increase. Michael's only been with us for a couple of years, so that reflects a obligation. The next salary item is the 600 line. That is the stipend employees. That would be our electrical inspector, our plumbing inspector, our assistant plumbing and electrical, and our weights and measure inspector. That item in its entirety is going up just the 2% that we anticipate, or actually we hope that council will support for the upcoming year. The third salary item is, I want to explain it a little bit. We are going up a little over 2% because Ms. Carla, who is our admin, has a 2% and a step increase. But she didn't start last year at the beginning of the year, so we did not have a full year with her last year. So it's only going up 2.65%, not what you would expect with a combined step and 2% COLA. The other person in my part-time, we are showing you in his salary $23,603. That is going to be a new position. That was a position that Kevin had. We are also showing you a reduction of $23,603 because the position is paid 100% out of the CDBG funds. So we wanted the council to know that it sits in my department. We wanted the council to know the cost of this on not the town budget, but the grant budget. But we also wanted to reflect that it's not in this budget. So 23,603 is in there, and then right below it, it's removed from there. That's probably the most confusing thing in my budget. If there are any questions on that, I'll take them, but I can move on.
Mr. Chair.
Council Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Real quick, just to Andy, I appreciate you putting this in. I know we had a lot of discussion last year about this, and I pulled up the memos from last year as well, so I'm glad that it shows it this year. So thank you. Thank you, Karen, as well.
Right. Moving into the operations side of the budget, we have a car allowance. We are obligated to that to the electrical inspector and the plumbing inspector for use of their own vehicles on their inspections. That is $100 a month for each of them, for the 2,400. That is not going up, nor has it gone up since I've been here. Repair and maintenance of a motor vehicle. We have what will this year be a 11-year-old vehicle. I have promised the council that we will drive our vehicles to death, and we will put what work we need to put into these vehicles to keep them going, as long as it doesn't exceed the cost of a new vehicle, or fails to make sense to do it. So that's going to keep the $750 in there. We just put front brakes on it this year, so I have a reflection in mind that says that we haven't spent any this year, but we actually have. We've just put new tires and front brakes on it, and I expect next year we're going to need rear tires on this. So I request that the $750 remain in there, again, to keep the motor vehicle alive for hopefully many more years. Printing of special forms, there is $300 in there. We're actually going to be attempting to get through. Mike and I have talked about some documents that we should be producing that we are not currently, and we plan to do it in the new years. We are going to attempt to get by on the 300, maybe coming back for a slight increase next year if we can't pull it off. But we haven't been giving written certificates of compliance on like decks and stuff, and we just feel that the homeowner, when they complete something and we take back the permit, they should get something. So we have the Center of Hope working on two park phones for us, so that we can hand them something that they can show to the insurance company that everything's good. Office supplies, we are maintaining a printer. It's a color printer in our office for special forms that we develop in the office. So the 700 reflects toner and other office supplies that we are to keep the office running. That has been a solid number for several years now, and we're hoping to keep that one alive. Miscellaneous supplies, that is where we would dip to go into if Mike needs a digital level to do accessibility ramps. Anytime he needs new tape measure, anytime he needs any field testing equipment, it would come out of there. Also, if we can do a simple board and secure by running out and buying a box of screws and screwing a board shut, a door shut or something like that, that comes out of our budget also. Conferences and meetings, we have not spent a lot on this year. However, we have been lucky in that they have been all online meetings and online conferences, and also we've been lucky that the BBRS has extended the CEU requirement. So for 1 year, so everything we missed this year, it's a 3 years rotating CEU. So this year would have been the last year, next year will be. Everything we didn't take this year, we're going to have to get in next year. And that would be CEUs for myself, for Michael, and also when we replace Kevin, CEUs to keep their licenses up. Dues, subscriptions, and periodicals. We are going to be, minimum probably Mike and I will both join the ICC this year. And also, one of us or both of us will be in Samoa, the Southeast Massachusetts Building Officials Association. What it gives us by joining these things is we can get the books for a much cheaper rate being members of the ICC. As you may know, currently the state of Massachusetts operates under a amended ICC, the Federal Building Code. Massachusetts amends it, but we have... Okay, thank you. If you can just tell me about where you lost me.
Dues.
Right at the end.
You're on conferences, I think.
At the beginning. On the conference.
Right around small capital.
Oh, small capital, okay. So I have a 2010 Ranger truck. The truck, last year I put in for a $3,000 bed for the truck because the rust in the bed of the truck was getting holes in it. That $3,000 there was a request from the previous town manager to move that elsewhere. There was a more critical issue, and I acquiesced. However, this year, the rust in the bed of the truck is starting to get around the bolts that are holding the bed to the chassis, and I don't want to lose that truck. As I said before, I try to keep my vehicles alive as long as I can possibly keep them alive. So if I can replace that bed, I believe I can get many more years out of it. If I lose that truck, the $3,000 bed is going to be significantly less than replacing the truck, which would probably be in the $25,000 to $35,000 range. So I am asking for support to keep that truck alive and hopefully save the town about $25,000 this year. Other than that, I am open to questions.
It's on you, Scott.
Any discussion, councilors? Julian?
The bed that you're purchasing, is that the stock bed for the truck, or is that like an aluminum bed, or?
That is an aftermarket. We got a estimate from Hillside Collision in January 22 of this year for aftermarket parts. I think they're going to repair the bed. The bid came to $2713. I'm asking for the $3,000 because it was a January bid, and if it goes up a little bit, I don't want to have to come back to the council for it. If it does not go up, I will tell the council right now, my expectation is I will try to get a rhino liner added for the $3,000 so that it doesn't start to rot out again.
Okay, because you originally stated you were purchasing a new bed, and now you're saying you're repairing it.
I'm sorry, we're repairing the bed.
That was
Okay.
last year.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Joe?
Just quickly, thank you. Mr. Chairman, through you. Andy, can you tell me where in the budget, or does it belong to the DPW, the white Ford F-150?
Nope, the white Ford F-150 belongs to the Board of Health.
Okay. And the new position that's being covered by CDBG, what is that position going to be used for?
Okay, that's not a new position. That's a position that we had on. The building code allows that we can inspect multifamilies once every 5 years. When we took on blight 7 years ago, we thought that it would be a good idea to try to curtail some of the blight before it becomes blight. So what the position is under the building department, the Mass Building Code allows us to look at multifamilies once every 5 years and to order correction of any condition that we see that is starting to become a dangerous condition or a blighted condition. This position was held by Bill, I can't remember Bill's last name, but then it was, Kevin had it last year. Kevin left us earlier this year. He left us at the end of January. This position is filling that position. It's not a new position.
Thank you. I'm all set.
Any further discussion? Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I did send a email earlier in the day to ask how much your department is taking in local receipts. And I don't know when I will get the answer on that, but I thought maybe you could give me a ballpark figure.
I cannot because at the moment I'm in North Carolina. I'm 1,000 miles away from my office. But I can get you a number on that Monday when I get back into the office.
All right.
Or I can give Maritza a call and actually Carla's off tomorrow and Carla's a building admin. So the earliest I want to promise it would be Monday, but I can definitely get it to you.
All right. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. The other thing
Thank
is
you.
the code enforcement. I know that it's coming out of CDBG money, but I'm wondering if we should move that to a different department because I know that CDBG funds can be used for code enforcement, but it also can be used in other departments. And when I drive around town and I see a lot of blight in town, I mean, you can drive up Thomas Street and I see the most unbelievable blighted property that I've ever seen with tires and garbage and all kinds of things in there and nothing being done about it. I'm just not sure what enforcement is taking place, and I'm wondering if it's worth keeping these funds in this department. I'm just asking that if this is a good idea to keep it in this department. If you think it is, that's fine. I'm just asking. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
The
Councilor Adams?
Thomas Street, we actually have an order out right now on two properties on Thomas Street. One of them is the small white building at the end of Thomas Street. We are discussing with the Treasurer's Department whether we want to move on that one. That was going to be one that we were going to take down, but in talking about it, there is not that much owed in taxes on it, and we think that if we can take that one and put it out to auction, that one might be a marketable one. I don't know if we'll get our money back on it, but we can at least put it back on the tax docket. And the property right next to it that you referred to where the tires are, we have an order on the owner. The owner has contacted us, and they have informed us that they are going to fix it. I mean, they are going to clean it, although they weren't happy that we're ordering them to do it. Ultimately, the responsibility falls on the property owner. So if they don't do it by the end of next week, or if they don't contact us by the end of next week again and give us the schedule, we will find a contractor and we will get it done and we'll leave the property.
All right.
You all
Thank you.
set?
Yep.
Mike?
Just, Councilor Marquetti, are you looking at wanting just to move it from one department to another department? Would you keep the CDBG,
Oh, absolutely.
still
I
funded
just
to
feel
it?
that it could be better used somewhere else. If we're not going to have any code enforcement, then
Well,
let's move it.
So you're saying, no, I'm just asking the question, so you're saying keep the code enforcement, utilize the CDBG money, but move it out of a different department?
Move it to a different
Or
department.
move it to a different department?
Right.
Okay,
Yep.
that's all I had.
And if he's taking, and that's why my original question is how much are we taking in local receipts? If they're taking in enough money to pay for this position, then absolutely keep it, you know? So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair,
This
that's all.
position comes, if I may, this position comes in as a grant for the town. We charge $25 per unit for the inspections. So essentially, the money that is spent, I know this one position brings in approximately $20,000 a year. We spend right about $20,000 a year, but we spend grant money and we get back general fund money. So I would encourage that we keep this position economically. It just makes sense.
Any further discussion? If no further discussion, we'll have a roll call vote. Adams?
Yes.
Marquetti?
I'm not on your committee.
Oh, I'm sorry. Julian?
Yes.
Joe Catrona.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
I'm a no. 3-1. Moving on to agenda item number 3, review and recommend to the Town Council FY 2022 public safety budget in the amount of $200,000 and entertain a motion to vote to submit to Town Council as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Seconded by Adams. Discussion. Town Manager?
Hold on, one second. The names and sometimes what the actual portion doesn't always register in my head. Ms. Harn always reminded me that this is the streetlight budget. I think the only thing that we were looking at here is a slight increase, was that correct, Ms. Harn?
No, there's a big increase. Let's have Heather
All
talk
right,
about
so
it.
I know Ms. Blakely is on the line. I knew we were subject to an increase on this particular one. I don't have it in front of me, so perhaps she can step in here.
Good evening, councilors
Evening.
and subcommittee members. So I know that the streetlights has been a hot topic recently with our transfers, and that we've been dealing with National Grid, trying to get some clarification from them regarding what they are charging us. This streetlight budget reflects the increase that we have seen over the past year and a half. It doesn't completely reflect it because we are still hopeful that we will see a reduction, right, in those charges, but we're promised it by today, some type of explanation and what to expect, and we did not receive that, even though I reached out again today saying, you know, do we have any comment, do you have any feedback from us? I know you had previously the transfer requests that projected our costs through the end of the year, if they stayed where we were seeing them currently, to being 218. So this budget is only reflecting a 10% increase over the actual charges from 2020. So just so you know, we have not fully increased it past 10% of 2020, hoping that the charges will regulate again once they clarify what the issue is. I know when speaking with Karen right before I left today, I could very easily see if we were to project that the 20% increase over this year's charges, we could be looking at $240,000 next year. I am still hopeful, and I think Karen is, that there is a issue with the billing that they are giving us, and that is why we have seen these big increases, because my understanding is these costs are regulated by the Mass Department of Public Utilities, and they are set by them. We are still trying to get clarification with what rates they are charging us and why they're why the rates are changing so much from month to month. I'll try to answer any questions, but I wish I had a better explanation from National Grid.
Karen?
It is what it is.
Yes, thank you. The last time I spoke with our National Grid rep was last week, and he explained that he believed that there was what he called it as a billing malfunction, which I don't know, really have a better explanation than that. But he doesn't know whether they should be variable because they do change month to month. So as Heather said, that her and I were looking at what the rates should be, and we were kind of looking at what we were being billed. So we hope to hear back from them. He did say that their billing or analysis department is very slow in responding. So we're hoping by this billing malfunction, he means that we are actually due some refunds on this account or some credits on it. So we keep calling him at least every week or a couple times a week, but he's just waiting to hear back from who's ever analyzing the information. So we will keep on it. Now, if you see on the budget sheets, you can see that that when I looked at it, I budgeted approximately like a 10% increase. Because at this point, I don't want to say that we're going to have another 20%, because if it's going to go up that much, then we keep needing to look at whether we should own these streetlights and not pay the rental, the facility charges on it. We really got to take a hard look at that. So once we get some more information, we'll come back, and hopefully we can reduce this budget. I'm not going to say for sure, but at least wanted to put some type of an increase in number in here for now as a placeholder until we get better information.
Discussion, councils? Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to DPW Director Blakely. A couple things. I know we spoke about the lights on Main Street up by Walgreens, Dunkin' Donuts. Is there an update on those?
So the update on those is actually in our contract. We have conduit included in the contract with Lynch. So I have asked them to go ahead and extend the conduits over to that. I am still waiting for they're trying to locate the site plan for Dunkin' Donuts when it was approved. I have spoken to some people that were here at that time, and they did confirm to me that those were put in by Dunkin' Donuts with their site plan. It's a very good possibility that the conduits run into Dunkin' Donuts, but Dunkin' Donuts refuses to pay for the power to those lights. If that's the case, then we should be able to intercept that conduit and run new wires and have an electrician come in and rewire those.
Thank you.
So at this point, we're going to run the conduits so that we can pave, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you. Look, if I can continue. Look at the budget number. I'm one that's in favor of keeping this at the actual number and coming back to council for additional funds. Until this is sorted out, it sounds like because of the utility, there's just not a very good handle on this yet. I'm not placing any blame on anyone in the town hall. I'm saying they just don't have a handle on things. To give us an answer like that that's very disappointing to hear. So I'm one that's in favor of not increasing this and coming back to council for additional funds. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just want to...
Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to clarify. I mean, I'm also in the same boat as Councilor Catrona here. I guess I don't have a problem moving this up to the town council the way it is, but I'm not sure how I will vote on it that day if we don't have any type of answers. I just want to make sure that I can actually do that or make that comment because we're not voting on it tonight. But I'm in the same boat as Councilor Catrona as far as my concerns here. I don't have a problem voting yes tonight to move it to the town council, but once at the town council, I'm just not sure if this is what I want to do.
Just a point of clarification.
Yes, thank you.
Even if one of these motions fail, it's going to go up with not a favorable, all of these are going to go to the town council, whether they're approved or not approved tonight. Because we're sending our recommendation to the council with the actual agenda item.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to be clear. Could you
can
make an
vote no
amendment tonight?
And say we all vote no, it's still going to go to the council with a negative vote. The council's going to decide. And at that point there, unless there's more information or if there's further input, that councils can The recommendation of a subcommittee is just that, a recommendation.
Right, but just a point to clarify, there could be an amendment to this motion this evening for down to 150,000, 200,000, correct?
Absolutely.
And then go up as 150,000, but the argument can be had for 200,000
Yes.
at the town council?
But again, if you wanted to make an amendment to drop the number from 200,000 to say 150,000, or whatever the magic number is that you're thinking,
Yeah.
we can amend it. It'll be an amended motion, but it will be a recommendation to council. It's not etched in granite till the council votes on it, and they could amend it back up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the clarification.
Anything else? Roll call. Julian?
Yes.
Joe?
No.
Adams?
I'll say yes.
And I'm going to be a no. So it's 2-2. Okay, agenda item number 4, and again, that will go up to the town council as a recommendation, 2-2 vote, and then the council can hash it out at that point. Moving on to agenda item number 4, review and recommend to town council the FY 2022 fire department budget in the amount of $2,591,231 and entertain a motion to vote to submit to council as presented. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Julian. Discussion? Town manager, want to carry that?
Good evening again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I've said with the previous budgets, the intent here was to try and keep the bottom line as close to 2% based on the level service budget. The overall increase for the fire budget this year is 2.2%. And we have the chief with us this evening who can go through it with you line by line. And at this point, I would turn it over to Chief Normandy.
Chief Normandy, it's all yours.
Good evening, everybody, councilors and citizen members, and obviously, definitely Karen Harnois and the town manager with pushing this system through. Worked out very well for us, as he just mentioned, the 2.2% increase. Obviously, there's collective bargaining agreements and pay raises included into this, but I just wanted to basically start out with saying, you know, I feel that the pandemic this time around, we've been in this for almost 17 months now, has put us all at a disadvantage with preparing our budgets for the next fiscal year. The potential for decreasing revenues and unknown expected costs to try to forecast this is a monumental task at hand. I have been continually active in CARES, FEMA, PA grant submission, not just for my department, but for the entire town. This proposed budget is a glimpse of our normal operating budget from previous years, which is not even close to our fiscal, to this year's current fiscal year. To be held to all of these line items, there needs to be some flexibility by all, and our town administration and government leaders to help us out a little bit. In this budget proposal, all union personnel salaries and benefits have been given 2% for the union step increases through the collective bargaining agreement. General cost of living increases were included in the administration and the call members of the department. I just want to make a point that obviously over the last year, I just talked a little bit about COVID. The roles and responsibilities of our department have increased greatly. You know, firefighters and EMTs and paramedics has made the call volume decrease for a short time, and then during the onset of the crisis, and then it's now slowly back up to its normal. Actually, it's a little higher right now as we currently sit. The anxiety of all the staff was heightened. They were now using double masks to include N95s, full body PPE, all while caring for patients possibly having the highly contagious disease. Throughout this pandemic, the members of this department have gone far and above in their job functions, preparing themselves and the community for the safest emergency care or fire services that is needed. The deputy and myself, also the inspector, our roles have changed, increased, as you all know. The deputy basically took over a good majority of the operations of the fire department, you know, changes in PPE on a daily basis, having meetings with DPH and OEMS, tracking COVID patients with the Board of Health, you know, and getting other vendors to actually buy PPE from, which, as we know, is pretty tough. Myself, I was able to establish with Chief Woodson the Instant Command System, the EOC Center, and the Instant Commander for the pandemic for the town. You know, daily meetings continued for all that time with the state, local boards of health, Harrington Hospital, and other DPH representatives. On an end note, before I jump into the budget, we all accomplished a lot over this last year, and I'm immensely proud for what we have all done, not just the fire department and the EMS division. We've all been in this together. I think this has been a great time. We've learned a lot throughout this past year, and obviously the budget we're here talking about tonight will be explained pretty good. Again, we didn't really increase too many things. There's a couple of highlighted items, but I'll just go through one by one. Let's start with our 5110, which is our salaries line. It is increased a little bit. It went from 1,773,000 to 1,802,665. That is cost of living for the deputy and myself, along with the 2% in the collective bargaining agreement. Salaries and wages on the call department. I increased that. That is just a slight up slightly. That is for 2 call officers and 10 call firefighters. Currently, right now, we have 6 of those. Out of those 12, we have 6 of those filled. My intention over the next couple of months, now that COVID is decreasing a little bit, we're going to be looking for more call firefighter applications. That is up a little bit because it is up 2% because of the cost of living that we added to that. Yeah. There is one line item that you might mention, and you might see, or you might have a comment on it later on. The Safer grant line is in there. It's at the very bottom of that, the 5110 account. As we've had previous conversations, that is now zeroed out. The previous 2 years when we did the Safer grant submission, there was a $27,000 figure in there, which was taken, the $27,000 was taken 2-3 years ago out of our overtime account. Because that, at the time of the direction from the financial team previously, that's the direction they took the money for, to fund the Safer grant. As we all know right now, it sits at 0 cost for the first 3 years that it cost us, and then obviously the 4th year is a pretty good chunk of change. One of the items that really comes to mind, and I really feel if I'm going to prioritize anything, this would be the account. This is the 5119 account. This is my admin, Stacy. And I don't really want to put a name to it, but this is the admin line. Last year, we added her 2 hours to make her a 34-hour person. Those 2 hours were added for the IOD. I believe everybody that sits on the council is aware of that. We all talked about that last year. So she's the IOD representative. And just from the word go, just in that particular role, when the new town manager came in, you've all approved a recent change in the IOD program for the town. Without her, she put her extra a couple of hands in that and streamlined the process, and we actually have a good process now with the town manager kind of making the final determination for IOD. That being said, the classifications, Schedule 1 classifications that we have for the town, if we're talking about employees that are equal, Ms. Reynard sits in a S8 right now, and that is a secretary position. My proposal to you guys that on her anniversary day in September, to move her, reclassify her up to an executive secretary in the position of MS12, step 1. That increases $1,300. I've noted that in the notes on the side during the description part of it. I have decreased quite a few of my line items to include my tuition line for $4,000, and the Safer grant stipends were in this budget before we started, but when we found out that the Safer program is going to be zeros, so we took out $6,400. So right there, we saved $10,000, or we can hopefully reallocate with your approval with this, moving forward. So that is probably one of the things that, I'm sure I'll get questions on. We can do a little history on that in a little bit. Overtime. I talked before about the overtime. My original proposal before, actually it was not a proposal, it was discussion with Karen and Michael when we had our first meeting. Just by the way that we've done historically over the last 3 to 5 years, the way it sits right now is that we would have needed about $180,000 worth of overtime to do all of the things that are in the boxes on the detail box on the side. That is box alarms, recalls, mutual aid, fire training, which we've actually decreased quite a bit this year because of COVID. This also does some regional training programs. Again, that's been decreased this year. And then we have to pay for EMS training, which is all in the collective bargaining unit. So all in all, this year my thought and conversation in my brain was to say we need about $180,000 in overtime. We balanced it, and we have the figure in there right now that you see, and I believe it is, somebody wants to blurt it out. So yeah, we increased it just for the 2% for collective bargaining payments, obviously because that's their hourly rate. We've gone from $150,908 to $153,926. So ultimately, right now, overtime is a big thing. We have some overtime, but that's the way our operations works. All of these different things that happen, like I said, first alarms, second alarms, box alarms. I think at 153,926, we're good for now. We can't really gauge it on this year's overtime with COVID. We're down to $15,000 in our account, and we still have, I think, 5 or 6 payrolls to pay out. That is not going to be enough, but we need to speak with Karen at some point over the next week or so. There was a reimbursement from FEMA. We need to put that back into the overtime account. And obviously the $25,000 we took from the reserve account, the accounts of the reserve account, to put that back in there. So there's some wiggle room for the rest of the year for that. I think we'll be pretty good. But overtime is really how we run the department on emergencies and callbacks and things like that. Longevity. Longevity is up a little bit because we've added a person at the very bottom. An employee just made their 10-year mark, and then a couple of the other people within the rank and file above the 10-year mark have moved up or down. So at this point, last year we were at 16,500 to 19,500. I'm just going to make a note here. I'm going to have to come back for a transfer in this account because I only have $500 in there. I'm already have to do $1,500 to make it a $2,000 item. Someone is due for longevity on May 1st. So you'll be seeing that very shortly here. Holiday pay. Let's talk a little bit about Juneteenth. Juneteenth was added into our holiday scale. It's 12 paid holidays, and the average holiday payout for us is about $6,500. So the figure 78,600 is increased, but it includes the additional holiday in this year's holiday plan. Assignments. Assignments are purely, with the most majority of them being collective bargaining agreement contract items. All these positions get stipends or they receive overtime for training. We've increased that just a little bit because of, again, all of our people, their pay has increased 2%. So we're at very confident at 149,560 that number is pretty set in stone. If anybody has any questions they want to stop, just I can't see you guys, but moving on. Uniform allowance. The uniform allowance went down because we took out 4 sets of uniforms for our safer people. So we're down from 25,755 this current year down to 19,125. So that's a firm number because that is a collective bargaining agreement. That's the way it sits, and in the description you'll see how it works out right there on the side. Tuition. As we spoke before, we had some transfers out of the tuition account. I'm just going to bring up Mr. Marchetti because I actually I looked at this over and over and over again, and I know that tuition is a needed thing for our members to get, professional education or get their degrees. But I took your advice and recalculated a few things. So we do have 5 semesters. Not every employee takes all 5 semesters as classes, but I feel really comfortable that at $11,000 for that line, that will work out quite well. As you know, the previous amount was $14,000, and I can't guarantee that, as COVID moves on, that people still don't jump into classes. I will say that schools may be opening up their classrooms again. We may have a member or 2 that don't want to go to school. So this is a forecast. I was notified of 3 employees going to school. I think this amount will purely cover us for that amount of stuff. Karen and Michael, I'm going to have to talk to you about electricity because I think we still need to. We're going back to the National Grid conversation again. So electricity, I increased 4%, and that only increased at $400. I'm going to be doing a transfer for both of them in the next week or so. And again, the same thing with water and sewer. We increased that 4% as recommendations from Karen. Again, we're going to have to look at that this year and probably maybe put a little bit more in there. Maybe when the National Grid rates do straighten out a little bit. I don't know really how to man that at this point because we have no control over that. Repair and maintenance of motor vehicles. This is motor vehicle repairs, inspections, stickers, body shop, front end alignments, brakes, et cetera, $33,000. It seems like a lot, but we have a lot of older equipment. Right now, there's $11,000 left in that account. We do have some preventive maintenance on 3 vehicles. We really have a little issue. Actually, it's a bigger issue. Medic 1, which is our second line vehicle. It's a 2010. It has an oil leak. We're in conversation right now with the DPW mechanic and Heather because we're not sure if we can use the equipment that's at the DPW right now to lift the truck up, to get that engine out, to replace the seals and or replace the engine. If we're replacing an engine, we're talking about $16,000. So the vehicle's still in service. We're monitoring the oil leak, but we're definitely looking at that as some sort of situation that we may have to rectify, or some sort of USDA grant will be coming along and we'll change up a forest fire truck to an ambulance. I can't see you guys, so maybe I got a little smile out of a few of you, but we'll have that conversation soon. Data processing. This has always been a thorn in the side because all the contracts that we have, they go up every year, and every year we try to make sure that it's 5% or 8%. We went from 21,062 this year. There's only $453 left in this account, and I do know I have a couple more smaller bills coming in, so there may be a transfer in the sites on that one. But I'm very confident right now, just by doing a 5% increase across the board at $22,115. Repair and maintenance of buildings and grounds. This is a $700 account that's going to stay. It's up $2,000 from last year, but increasing costs in fixing some of our air conditioning and heating units that we've had. We did change vendors. We went from one vendor that was in Millbury to another vendor. I'm not sure where the new vendor is located, but we had 2 small repairs done, and they were actually there were repairs that were done previously, and they were almost triple the price. I don't know if that's because COVID is here, but I need to estimate that I'm going to be doing, annual repairs on that system. Climate vent systems, about 18 years old. That is the diesel exhaust system. So we do repairs on all of this stuff, and I definitely, it is $2,000, but that $2,000 is going to get eaten up pretty quickly. So that I'm feeling comfortable at $7,700 on that one. Copiers and lease, we're good. We're going to keep that stabilized. Repair and maintenance of equipment. So as you all know, or most of you should know, that we carry life-saving monitors and cardiac compression machines to do CPR. All of this stuff has an agreement or a maintenance agreement. We need to keep these things in tip-top shape with the appropriate software upgrades as they should go. These things use multiple batteries in these maintenance agreements. They replace our batteries for us. One battery for a Life Pack 15 is probably $480. And it takes two of them, and you have to have two backup, and we have 4 of those machines. So, you know, it is a costly venture. These repair and maintenance contracts are up from previous years 15%. There was no price increase last year because of COVID, and there was not a price increase the year before that in 2019. So we got a big hit on this one. We budgeted last year 11.8. This year it's going to be 14.8, so we're up $3,000. So when you look at your front sheet on the increases here, that is one of the bigger ones that you'll see. So that's 52.51, and obviously we try to move forward and make sure that we make the right adjustments. Repair and maintenance of communications. Obviously, most of you know in this past year we've put together the dispatch center, and a lot of the funds that we used to keep the dispatch center running between the police and the fire department, communications-wise, we used a good chunk of it up, and we used a lot of our IT stuff. But repair and maintenance of communications, I'm still going to keep at $8,000. We do have about $3,000 worth of portable radio repairs that's unpaid right now, which will bring the balance to that account currently to about $2,000. You know, the radio is our lifeline. You'll probably hear the same thing from Chief Woodson. The portable radio to our people is definitely the lifeline to get communications back to the dispatch center. I'll just give a little plug to the dispatch center. What I was very nervous with in October doing the switchover, I will say, it is done quite well. The staff there and under Chief Woodson and Melissa Palmer's guidance, it's been working out well on both sides, doing the fire dispatching for 911 stuff and doing the regional dispatch stuff for the fire district, which is 25 towns. So it's working out well, but I will say that there's going to be some monies needed to finish up the project and other things that didn't get replaced in the original project. So Chief Woodson, if you're on, I just plugged it, so you need to hit it home afterwards. Rental and leases of O2 tanks, that is an ongoing situation. We have to have O2 for the ambulances. So $2,000 is still the same budget. Gear and uniforms went down, went up. The price of gear has increased 15%. This is our firefighter structural gear. We need this. We have to have appropriate firefighting gear for the firefighters to go in. Gear to a firefighter, or actually the NFPA standard for a person wearing gear, the gear can't be over 10 years old. We have a constant ongoing cycle of replacement of gear every 10 years. With the exception of a couple of call guys, everybody has 2 sets of gear spaced out with the appropriate time frame, probably 3 or 4 or 5, 6 years in the dates. The reason for 2 sets of gear, because when the gear comes back from a fire and it's been involved, the employee's been involved in a fire, the gear has to be washed. Has to get the carcinogens off of it, has to be dried, and it takes a couple of days for that to dry. The second set of gear is for them to go back into service after that set. So I know gear is expensive. It's like $3,200 for a pair of pants and just the coat. That doesn't include the helmets, the boots, the hoods that we have. So that is up $2,200, but it's a needed thing. It's part of running, being safety to our firefighters. Specialty services, that's remaining the same. That is our cell phone air cards, and cameras to the doors and access, obviously, through COVID. We've locked our doors down. I can say that we didn't have that stuff before. Actually, we had just gotten it right before. We locked the station down, and the cameras in the door locking mechanism worked actually quite well. So we have a system worked out for that. Printing of forms, that's still at $850. We have about $400, actually $300 spent in that, but we're actually got an order ready to go on that. Office supplies, where we have $400 left in office supplies. We're getting ready to go order some more stuff at the end of this year, so $1,200 is good. Copy machine supplies, same thing, $600 is good, is where we're at. Data processing supplies is $4,000. That's all for data processing, some computers. We had to buy a computer a few months back. We made that work out of that account. Maintenance improvement of the building. This is the maintenance of a 100-year-plus old fire station. This is ongoing. I don't need to tell you, and I hope that all of you have a chance to come over to the station, make an appointment, and call me or call the station number that I pushed out to all of you. This is important building maintenance. We need to keep the money in there. We're using the money as we speak just to keep it up to functional and making it safe, to be honest with you. Janitorial, housekeeping, we'll keep that at $750. That's what we generally purchase stuff up to $750. Building and grounds materials. Recently, we received a grant, and I'll tell you, this is where we do a little painting and wallpapering and door maintenance. We received a grant for exercise equipment. One room in the back and behind the fire station. I don't know if you've seen the social media post yesterday. The guys took it upon themselves to clean all the walls down and then paint the walls in our exercise area. So that money was used out of this building and grounds materials. It's now a safe, clean room. The floors will be going down next week, but $3,000 is generally what we do. We do paint regularly every couple of years. Door maintenance is ongoing. All the doors in this building, to include the garage doors, are constant repair. So $3,000 is a good amount, same as last year. Motor vehicle parts and accessories. Right now, we're looking at, we have $4,000 left in that account. That's for batteries for trucks, tires, filters, other motor vehicle parts. We recognized probably 4 months ago or 5 months ago that some of the tires on engine 2 are dry rot. We had a failure of one of the tires. We couldn't get a rim for it. There's just a long, drawn-out process because they don't make a tire nowadays to fit a 1989 Han fire truck. So we have a price, and we're going to hold off for another month or so. It's $4,000, and I only have $4,600 left in the account. So using that number 10,000, we definitely use that amount. I mean, we got to keep the trucks on the road. They're old. I was going to say health and beauty supplies, but they're not beauty supplies. These are EMS supplies. You'll see that this is up to $39,500. Previous years and previous counselors said, why do you have so many different medical accounts? If you look in your packet, the very last account, which is 5862, with the advice and the guidance of Ms. Harnois, we closed that $3,500 out. It was a medical equipment account. We merged it into the health and EMS supplies. So that's why that account has gone from $36,000 to $39,500. We spend a lot of money on medications and EMS stuff and things like that, obviously. And then this year we did do a good bulk of PPE. We did get a lot of those funds reimbursed through FEMA and or CARES. So this year is an abnormally altogether, but moving forward, the budget should stay. I would like at 35. Chemical and lab supplies. These are extinguisher recharges and things like that. This is my my trusty Councilor Adams thing. What you've never used this account. You always let it carry over every year. And then after a review, so I did take his advice. I looked at it after a review of about 5 years. Once a year, or once every 16 or 18 months, we do buy a particular bottle of. It's called calibration gas for our CO and multimeters that we have within the station. So I do know it's coming up. I believe that we will be getting one of those, and we actually have an acetylene tank that we need to purchase this year. But so decreasing it to $500, I think, is a good move because I don't know when these gases are going to run out. So we definitely can make that work. Training and material supplies. This is obviously through for CPR, PALS classes, any other classes that we perform. I can tell you that I was talking with Deputy Hewlett today. American Heart Association just made a bunch of changes to all the regulations. So that means for a fire department that does CPR classes, we have to buy all new material. DVDs or slides get into the Axis. So keeping it at $1,800 is the best, is a good number. So I can't see that. I don't want to see that decrease. Occasionally we do make a little profit. Well, we don't make profit. We do charge for the cards, so we do get a small amount of revenue back, but that basically is the cost of the cards, and we give that to the vendor that makes the cards for us. So $1,800 is a good one. Safety supplies, $55.82. We buy batteries, hand lights, portable radios, pagers. That's a $2,500 line item that's going to stay at $2,500. We have about, I don't know, after the next, we have 2 purchases right now that are ongoing out of this account. It's a radio and a bunch of batteries. And again, well, I'll go back to batteries. A set of 6, 8, I believe it was 8 portable batteries, cost us $1,000, $1,200. I can't make this stuff up, and you know, unfortunately, we need batteries. We need those things. So keeping it at $2,500 is appropriate. Parts and accessories, non-vehicle. This is repairs to our SCBAs, which are our air packs that we wear into fires. Portable pumps, generators, Hearst tools. The Hearst tools are the jaws of life. We have several different units of those now, obviously through other funding sources. Keeping that at $2,500 will keep that account up and running and keeping our equipment up in the proper and certified state that it needs to be in. Almost to the end, people. License, permits, and taxes. There will be I think there's going to be a transfer coming in this where we spent out quite a bit of money in this account. This is annual EMT recertifications that we pay for. Also applications for DPH and OEMS, and also our CMED dues come out of that. Our CMED dues have gone up. So I believe right now we have $5,700 in there. I believe the CMED dues are going to come in around $7,000, but that usually comes in right at the end of the year, so I can't get a gauge on that. So we'll probably do a transfer, but I think with moving a few people around with recertifications into the next coming year, 11,000 will still be good. I'm very confident that this should be working out okay. Mileage, this year we didn't travel. Next year, maybe a different story. $200 is a good good line to start with. We do use that on a yearly basis to go to conferences and things like that. So, you know, $200 is good. Conference and meeting reimbursements. That, again, COVID has stopped conferences. Just I heard Andy saying a little while ago, same thing. You know, we got $1,000 in there, but we do annually attend the Fire Chiefs of Massachusetts Professional Development Conference, which comes out of that. We hadn't had it last year or this year, so to keep the $1,000 in there, I'd like to keep that there. Dues, subscriptions, and periodicals. We have to keep the staff and ourselves, the deputy and I and the lieutenant inspector, fire inspector. We have to keep books coming, and it gives us the things that we need in our trade to be up to speed on. So $3,500. That's quite a bit. There's magazines and obviously other subscriptions that we have to apply to NFPA subscriptions and things like that keep us up to date on current trends and technologies. Furniture is still $500. There's no change on that. Safety equipment. This is a big ticket item. This keeps the department running in regards to keeping all of our Scott air packs updated with software. That's a big chunk of change. We did those a few years back, and again, we mixed in a few air tanks being pushed into that. We have to replace nozzles, not on a regular basis, but when we need them. Pipe bowls, hoses, gates, air pack replacement parts and upgrades, fit testing. We do use this every year. We do it. We have about, so we had $6,600 in there each year, and we probably have about $40,000 or $38,000 ready to go to buy things. Ice rescue suits, which the ones we had were almost 20 years old. Bags that go with ice rescue suits, along with ropes. We've got some mounts for the rescue truck. Some brush gear helmets we had to buy out of that. So basically, keeping that at $66,000 is where we need to be, because some of these things are ongoing costs. in regards to the air packs. I will say that, and that's the end of mine, but as we talked a little bit, I don't have small capital items. It's everything for the fire department is our large capital items, vehicles, and in a few years, you'll see some communication stuff that Chief Woodson and I will be pushing forward to capital. Our air packs in 2027 are all going to have to be replaced. The ones we have now were purchased in 2012. So there's a lifespan for all of these things, and we have to continually upgrade them and keep them in service and certified by vendors that can test them. So that's all I have.
Committee members, any discussion? Joe?
Just have a question through you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a problem with the numbers with the budget, but I do to either Karen or the town manager. We heard a couple nights ago, and I hear it again tonight, money's left over in the account. Is that money pulled back and put into the general fund? If there's money left over in an account, or does that carry over into the next year?
Well, I was going to say, I think Ms. Harnois can answer that for you, but it's my understanding those typically wind up being our certified free cash at the end
That's
of the year.
correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councilor Marquetti?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. Today I did ask for, we're at the last last subcommittee meeting, I did ask to see how far we're behind in our tax receipts this year. I know last year when COVID first started, there was concern that we were going to have a shortfall in revenue. So I'm still waiting for those numbers. But before we started the budget, I do remember I sent the town manager an email and I asked that the budget be reduced. Not level funded, I asked that it be reduced. And I don't think it's unreasonable when I look at just the numbers of how much they actually spent last year compared to the budget number here. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask that it be reduced. A 2% cut in the overall budget, I don't feel is unreasonable. We don't know how our tax revenue's coming in. A lot of people are out of work right now. I'm not asking for a 10% cut, 20% cut, but I don't think it would be that difficult to find even a 2% cut in these budgets. When I look at things like, well, he talked about safety equipment. He only spent 23 grand last year. So he wants 66. I don't think it would be difficult to cut maybe a couple thousand out of that. And if you went down the line and looked at all that they spent and what was budgeted, I don't think it would be that difficult to find just a couple thousand here or there. That's my only concern about it. I know how I'm going to vote if nothing changes here when it comes to the full council, but I just would like them to take a harder look at these budgets, especially because people right now are struggling to pay their taxes. And so when we vote on the taxes in November, we've already got the report here, it's going to be going up. So I would like to see a little bit more effort into reducing these budgets. Thank you.
Karen?
Yes, thank you. I just want to respond to Councilor Marquetti. He asked at the subcommittee meeting, I believe it is on Tuesday, for an update on the revenues. And I'm just trying to get him as updated as I can for March. Not everything is posted because we're just 8 days into the next month. So I should be finishing that up probably for you tomorrow.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? Just got a quick question, Chief. I don't know if I misunderstood. There's an executive secretary. Is this an existing secretary that got upgraded, or is this a new position?
So Ms. Raynaud is a secretary on the classification list. She, on the Schedule 1, she falls into an S8 position on the classification list. I'm asking that I would like to move her up on her anniversary date to an MS12. So this is not a new position. I've taken the money from obviously reducing my budget and elsewhere for the $1,299 to make that all work out for her. that will also, she is, I will give a comparison, Chairman Lazo. The DPW and the police department both have MS-13 employees running their front office for their chiefs. She is just, and our position is just I don't want to just say just a secretary, but her position is classified as a secretarial piece, and I think she's much more valuable to us, and it is a major department, and that's what the
Okay, Chief, just give me a second. I want to try and get my head around this. I heard the number 13,000, and I didn't understand if we have a secretary and she works, how many hours does she work a week?
She's at 34 hours, and that's where she's going to stay.
Okay, she's at 34 hours a week, and her duties are the same day-to-day operations. And you want to upgrade her to a different grade, which would allow her to get paid more money. What has changed in the job that would make this different or to justify the move in the pay scale?
Just a point of information,
the reason why
Mr.
I'm
Chairman.
asking, I have a sour taste in my mouth from the school district where they called in an executive secretary, nothing changed, and it was a $30,000 raise, which was a little excessive, but we're not in charge of the school district. We just keep giving them money. So for me, I just want to understand, has this changed the hours, the performance of the duties? Can the chief answer it, and then I'm going to go to the manager?
Well, I had a point of information. You said 13,000, it's
ahead.
1,300. I just want to make sure there's no confusion.
Okay, it's 1,300?
Yes.
Okay. That's why I'm asking this question in order to justify it. If it's 1,300, that's a big difference. But please explain to me what's changed in the position. Besides, she's a great secretary.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. So it is $1,300. It's $1,299, and that's only a partial year from her seniority. So what has changed is that she's done a phenomenal job in educating some of the other townspeople in Eunice. She actually has helped out Karen and Yolanda quite a bit. I think her responsibilities are very equal to what the other MS-13s do within the town. I think it's a fair process for her to be moved into the MS-13. It is money that is an increase in the budget, but her position is not new. She's staying at 34 hours, just moving into an upper bracket that makes her a professional. You know, she's a professional employee. She's proven herself to be professional. Her job duties, as I explained, she's taken on that IOD, and I know we added 2 hours to her last year, but I can tell you that I don't feel that she's going to go to 40 hours next year, because I think that's exactly what you guys are thinking, or 37 and a half hours. I think with her being in this executive secretary role, she does the same thing as the police person and also the DPW. I think she is well deserving of this employee to get this. And even if it wasn't just her, I think it's equal. It's equal. The DPW, the fire department, we're major departments. We're all three of us major departments. And Mr. Lazo, I do believe that you may have been involved with the creation of our administrative secretary position from the beginning. It was a small penis. She was an 11-hour person, I believe, at the cable office, and then it was a 7-hour shift at the fire station, and that was all merged in with the previous town manager. It's time to make this position right. We are a major department in the town, and again, I'm not asking for her to go to 37 and a half hours. This keeps her at 34 hours across the board.
I'm not questioning whether she's a professional or not. My thing is, I've been around negotiations for about 30 years, and what happens is we call it the monkey see, monkey do theory, where one person gets it, then the other three get it. And to me, when we had MS-13 or MS-14, whether it be the school district or the town, it's to better understand the duties that MS-13 should be labeled. Being a good worker is what I call standard procedure out in the private sector, where you upgrade somebody is usually something to do with the performance of the job was added, or duties were added, or hours were added, or the job changed. I'm not saying you're not doing the right thing because other departments did it. I wish maybe that we had a better grip on what those duties were to further understand the value of the position. I'm not talking about the person. I'm talking about the value of the position. I like taking the person out of the position and see what the value of this position is to the town or to the fire department or the DPW. I mean, I'm asking the question to further understand it. I'm not disagreeing that she's not valuable. I'm not disagreeing that she's professional. I just think when you're on the town council and everybody does a budget, there are a lot of different moving parts to the budget, and one of them is when you start giving raises in step increases, not in percentage, then you have a compound raise. If she's up for a 2% raise, she gets a $1,300 raise plus a 2%. What does that do to that position? Not the person, the position. Then the council in the town owns that position at that level. If she should leave, somebody comes back in, that's not going to go down. It's going to stay right where it is, and that's been past practice. So my question is just to further understand that if the town, maybe we need to pay attention further across the board when secretaries or even various positions, they get a stipend for something. Why is it? Well, they get a stipend because they do this. You can actually label it, tag it, and pay it. That's the only reason why I'm questioning it, but thank you very much for your explanation. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So you know, whether you vote on that piece of it or not, or I know everybody has an opinion on this. I do have a 2-page job duties of the administrative assistant, which is very similar to what the MS-12 positions are. So what I will do after we get off the call tonight, if you don't mind, with the town manager's approval, send you this document, and it will give you the administrative duties and responsibilities, and we can compare it. I think it's pretty close to what, actually, I know it's spot on to what an MS-13 does. So, you know, the people in the other roles I'll call them roles, counselor, those other roles do the same and or more. Stacy does more than what those people do. She's been called on to help the executive assistant at the police station, and I'm not cutting people down, but I think it's equal. I think she's done a phenomenal job in the atmosphere that we're in. She worked from home at COVID, so let me send this administrative assistant duties thing to all of the counselors, or actually to your PPP committee. Actually, no, I'll do it to all of them, and we'll move forward from there. So that's a great question, but I'm kind of passionate on this one because she, the position deserves, someone that's a professional, and like you said, if she does leave or if it becomes vacant, we will definitely we know what standard has been set by what she's doing right now.
Go ahead, Karen.
Yes, thank you. Just as a point of clarification, I know we were talking about the MS-13, but MS-12 is actually the executive secretary to a major department. And if I could, I just wanted to comment on the position. I've seen that position really evolve over the last several years. It did start out at the fire department that the chief himself was doing all the administrative duties, the payroll, the accounts payable, all of the grants. And then the deputy chief position was added, and also the assistant. I've seen it evolve so that she does pick up all the same duties that the other departments are assigning to their administrative assistants. And I'm not really sure why it was classified as an S8 to begin with. I wonder if it was because the department didn't have an administrative assistant and they weren't really sure how much duties, and also what the prior fire chief was willing to give her for duties. So I just wanted to comment that what I've seen is actually just an evolution in
Karen,
the
and that's the answer I'm looking
position.
for. When we do budgets, there's a story behind the numbers. As all finance director, there was one finance director that on the school side, it said there's a story behind the numbers. So when I look at the numbers, I don't see people. I'm trying to
Correct.
see position and numbers for the taxpayers of Southbridge. You clarify that this position has evolved. That's the right answer to my question, because I don't want to hear what a wonderful person she is or he is, or I don't want to hear, I want to hear meat and potatoes, so to speak. It's a 34-hour job a week. It has evolved. I have put these duties on to her that are above and beyond what it does. And describe, like you did, what an MS-12 is for us to understand what are those duties of an MS-12? And what are the duties of an MS-13, which would automatically justify the move to go to a 13? And that's why on something like this, it's nothing to do with the person as much as to further understand the pay scale, what it does, and you've actually answered my question by saying it's evolved, and depending on the chief and the duties that are put onto the person. And if there are more duties that went on to the person, I can understand it. But there are sometimes people get these step increases because they're nice people, and that's not a reason to give a step increase to anybody in the taxpayer's eyes.
Right, that's why I just wanted to take the
It's
person...
their job to come in and be nice.
Right, that's why I wanted to take the person out of it and just say, it actually went, he's proposing it to go from an S8 to an MS-12.
Right.
That's why I wanted to take the person out of it and just tell you what's kind of happened over the years that I've seen.
It's a good discussion for everybody tonight, and that's why I spurred it. Any other discussion, Mr. Marquetti?
Thank you. Just a clarification, did I miss something? Is it 1,300 or 2,200?
1,300.
Okay, because I'm just looking at the totals here, and that,
No, I misspoke. I thought it was 13,000
Right.
when he was doing his percentage.
He's right.
all right, thank you.
Wait a minute. Mr. Adams?
Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chair. I added up the same thing. I thought it was 2,200. And maybe I'm not adding right.
I thought maybe I
thought it was
missed something.
22.
I come up with 2222s.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm confused. I was going to ask that too.
I do believe it's 1,299, we just rounded it off to 1,300.
Well, with the numbers I got it-
1,299 and change.
But the number, Mr. Chair, the number we're adding up comes out to 2222 on the sheet.
Well, if I could, what I did is I went back to the S8, what she would have been paid versus a minimum step on the MS-12. And that's what the difference is.
Very well, thank you.
Okay.
Is she an MS-12 at this point?
No, she's an S8.
MSA?
S8,
Oh, SA, I'm sorry.
yes.
Can I ask you a question on the point of an SA? And we're going to an MS-12? I thought it was 13, but it's 12.
Yes.
How many steps between S8 and MS-12? I mean, how does it work on the pay scale?
Well, it's a $1,300 increase to get to a minimum step on an MS-12. And then from there, there's 4 more steps beyond that.
Beyond 12?
Beyond the minimum step for an MS-12. The salary range is $51,256 to $61,217.
Okay. Understood.
Otherwise, she would be at a maximum S8 right now and staying there.
Any other question by council? Council
Maybe,
Adams?
Mr. Chair, just to Karen or the town manager. Earlier, Councilor Marquetti brought up the fact that the safety equipment is at $23,000. You're expecting more to come in as far as receipts by the end of this fiscal year, correct? Because
Well,
even
I'll-
last year was at $27,000, but the actual this year is, the actual was like $58,000 or $59,000 or something like that.
Correct, I
When you
believe
say
that
2021, actual is as of March 23rd, 2021, right?
the actual expenditures were $23,000, but in fiscal '20 last year, $58,000, almost $59,000 was spent out of the $66,000.
But I just want to clarify that there's more receipts possibly coming in for that 23.
Well,
to
I'm
add
sure
on
that
top
there's
of that,
more
correct?
expenses than the chief can, right there, can talk about that.
I think what I was, in general, I'm kind of asking is where you have that 2021 actual line on our sheets,
Yes,
that's actual as of the day you printed this out.
that's correct.
So this does not, I just want to clarify that this will go up
Yes, a lot of times.
by
I know-
June 30th.
I know the chief's raising his hand, but a lot of times what'll happen is I think he waits till further on in the fiscal year, till around now, to make sure that that he doesn't need the money for something else that might have happened detrimental in his budget, and then he will go and spend what he needs.
Thank you, Karen. It's just more of a general question on that actual 2021 that you have as of to when the day you printed this out.
Yes.
There's more receipts coming.
Chief
Got it.
Normandy, you had your hand up?
Dave kind of just answered his own question. We have receipts out that we have not collected equipment on yet, so we do not have the ability to pay them until the equipment comes in.
I just
We're
didn't
up
want to
to-
vote on
we're
something
up
and
to
take
about
$40,000 from you.
$59,000.
Thank you.
Deputy Chief Ulick, you had your hand up?
Yeah, just to clarify that as well, as we did not make several of the large purchases until we knew that we were getting reimbursed for the COVID expenses, because we were initially denied the overtime reimbursement. So we were withholding that money in case we had to make transfers. Once we clarified and got the full reimbursement, then we started making the purchases that we had intended to.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councilor Catrona, and then back to...
Councilor Lazo, Joe Dow, I need
Where are you, Joe?
online.
Earth to Joe.
He can take it.
I think
Joe,
we
you got the floor.
recognize Joe
Okay, thank you,
Catrona.
Mr. Trey, through you. Question for the chief. If you raise that position, are you gonna look in the future to replace that position for somebody else too? So are you gonna eliminate the first one?
The S8 will be erased. So there will not be, we will not fill the S8 position. That's going to be gone. She's going to be moving up to an MS12, and I apologize for saying MS13 before.
Okay, so you're just gonna, move that position and you're gonna eliminate the other one complete.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Back to Councilor Catrona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, to the town manager, to Karen. Chief Ulick began to answer my question, answer the question I was going to ask, but I couldn't hear him. If there's COVID reimbursement money coming in, but you expend money from the fire department, where does that money go back to the fire department, into the individual account?
If I could,
Karen?
Mr. Chair, if the expense occurred in this fiscal year, then what we will do is we're going to put the money into a FEMA account, and we're going to reclassify the expenses there, so it will free up the money in his budget. If it's a prior year, it'll go back into the revenue to free cash.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I understand what Councilor Adams is saying, but the only thing that I was trying to say is that I don't think it's unreasonable to go from 66,000 I'm just using that as an example. There's a lot of them here that they didn't spend as much as they were budgeted for. So all I'm asking is that if you didn't need all of that, it's not that unreasonable to ask them just to cut a couple thousand out of it. I'm not telling them to go down to 23,000, but I'm not asking them to go down to 23,000, but if you could cut it down to maybe, 60,000 or something like that, I don't think that's unreasonable, but thank you.
Councilor
So
Adams.
just to clarify, I was just asking more of a general question.
Right,
Under
I
the
get it.
2021 actual. And I just utilized what you had said about 23,000. I didn't want to make it sound like it was $40,000 short or anything like that. That's all I was asking.
No, I got it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further discussion? Mr. Town Manager.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, just generally speaking, Mr. Marquetti had mentioned earlier that he had emailed me probably earlier in the year. He and some other councilors have talked about lowering the budget between 2% and 3%. No justification other than let's just cut the budget 2 to 3%. And you're dealing with a budget that's approximately $60 million. So if you're looking to 2 to 3% cut across the board, you're looking at 1.2 up to $1.8 million. Now, if we're going to be fair about that, about half our budget is the school. So you would be looking for me in this Harnois and the department heads to reduce the budget anywhere from $600,000 to almost up to $1 million. Now, you brought me in here to look at a lot of things. I've heard all sorts of comments about staffing here. I think we run fairly lean here. And what you're really cutting at the end of the day is the services to the people of Southbridge. The general government side of that budget carries most of your non-discretionary items, your health insurance, your debt. A lot of our state assessments you'll see in the budget memo were the big ticket items this year. The state has hit us for various assessments. There are things that we just can't take from. And I'm more than happy to prepare a slide by the time we get to the end of the budget season that if you think we're going to start taking money out, where it's going to come from. And it's really going to come out of the utilities and the expenses of these departments and maybe salary lines. And those are your services at the end of the day. And we've already asked people, except for basic increases in utility costs, to live within their means from last year. So we're trying to move forward, and I would be afraid that if you start cutting, you're going to be taking a step back. I'm happy to prepare a slide to give you your options, but I would strongly advise against it. I said it during the interview process. I don't think going towards salaries and personnel is the way to do business. I don't want to demotivate any of my personnel. I want to make sure that we have people that are properly motivated and properly serving the people of Southbridge. If that becomes a mandate of the council, of course I will look at it. But right now, we feel that we presented the best budget that is going to work for the people of Southbridge and to stay within what I think are reasonable guidelines, working off of best practices and the financial policies to try and deliver the best services at the best price for the taxpayers. So.
Go ahead, Councilor Daniels.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I wouldn't be for an across-the-board cut. I just wouldn't support that. I think that would be damaging. I think the town manager is right. You'd be getting into the equipment, the supplies that people need. We're talking $700 for copier equipment. We're going to cut that by another 2%. That doesn't make any sense because they'll be coming back to us because their costs aren't going down. Their costs are going up, and we're holding them level as it is. So a generalized 2% cut, 3% cut, I just wouldn't be for. I do have a question for the chief, though. Thank you. Chief, how many air packs does the department own?
The last count, I believe there was 50 air packs.
50? And these are all expiring in a few years?
Some are at different levels. The original order of about 30 of them from 2012, those are the ones that will be expiring in roughly 2020, 25, 27, right around there.
Okay, and you replace these out of that safety and equipment or safety equipment line item?
Over the years, we've added some newer packs, so that's why they're all staggered in prices, but the original group of 30 that we ordered in 2012 are the ones that we're going to start having to replace.
Okay, so the self-contained breathing apparatus, which is what you use to go into a building with, is going to need to be replaced in another couple of years. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Any other discussion? I'd just like to comment on the theory of budget, what somebody calls lean, okay? I happen to serve with a female town manager named Florence Chandler. She ran it lean. No excuses, didn't pull any punches. She ran lean. We had volunteers in all the departments doing work, whether it be a renovation of a inspections office, it was done in-house. Not put out $18,000 of the taxpayers' dollars to do the office. The office looks beautiful. We need work on our buildings, I agree. When we talk about trucks, when we talk about how long can a vehicle run, do you want to send it to a body shop and have it refurbished like in the private sector, or do we buy new? And I don't disagree with the town manager as far as physically being sound and making the right decisions so you have the right bond ratings and all of that. But there's a lot of stuff in the town budgets and in the town departments that a few years ago, it wouldn't have, some people think that we have fat in those budgets, that the more you surround yourself by more people, the more the top does less. It's been a theory in school departments, it's been a theory on town side. I'm not saying there aren't departments that deserve to be 2% cut. I could take that out of inspections with my eyes closed and never even hinder progress in the inspections department. But that's why we have a council. That's why we have these subcommittees and this discussion. I question the secretary because it is a common practice for the boss to take care of the secretary because it's their secretary. How to justify it is just a point across the way. DPW, fire, police, whatever. They've been doing this in the school district and in town and municipalities forever. Is it right? Is it wrong? What's your flavor? You're the government. They're the department heads. We're the ones that are supposed to hold them accountable. The manager has a job. That's his team. I think Southbridge, it's been a long time since we saw anybody cut anything, okay? So we can level service a budget is one thing. Level fund a budget is a whole nother ballgame. I haven't seen level funded in a while. I'm not saying we have to do that. The economic times right now seem to be pretty decent. I know COVID gave us a hit, but monies are flowing, grants are coming in, the town seems to be making a turn. Is this the right time to do that or the wrong time? It's all a flavor. There is no right answer to that. It's your gut feeling on whether you think you're voting the proper thing. Do I want to give this secretary? It's unfair not to treat her or to treat her differently than other positions similar to this. I wanted to hear that answer. I got that answer. So I'm happy with that. I will sleep night voting yes on the budget. Now, if we're going in and we want to lower the tax rate, you better change your hats, boys and girls, because in order to give back, you're going to have to cut or find money to levy the taxes down. And that doesn't happen often. You know, with the 2.5, they always go for the 2.5, the 2.5. If I may step into the history of the school district and how we built that building. Florence Chandler didn't raise taxes for 13 years. We had a different crew back then. Well, what that did was that gave a stretch between what we could raise taxes or whether we had to go to the voters. The school was built without going to the voters because we built that buffer by being so conservative that you could do the high school, not go to the voters to override taxes you taxed up to the levy. So, I mean, just food for thought. I'm not saying vote yes, vote no, this is good, that's bad. I want to spur a real thought in your heads as councilors and citizen members that the ball's in your court. As Councilor Adams said, can we amend this? We can amend anything as a recommendation of subcommittee. Then we go to the full body and we can amend at that point. Once the budget is adopted, then there's no more amending. We've now put the document forward for implementation. Just understand that that's what we're going to be doing. Is there any other discussion on this agenda item? If not, we'll do a roll call. Adams?
Yes.
Julian?
Yes.
Catrona?
Yes.
Lazo, yes. 4-0. Moving on to agenda item number 5, review and recommend to Town Council FY 2022 police budget in the amount of $4,587,389 and entertain a motion to vote to submit to council as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion by Catrona,
Second.
seconded by Julian. Discussion. Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have Chief Woodson on the line. Again, the same pitches I made before. We worked with the chief. We went line by line. We talked about the level service. He has some things that he had to address. We went over a couple of things about some of his part-time being historically underfunded, issues with overtime, holiday pay, uniforms and longevity, things that are contractual in nature, as well as data processing and some of his dues being up. I'm sure he'll do an excellent job explaining those to you, but again, we're trying to live within our means and abide by our contractual obligations and make sure we run a top-notch public safety here in the town of Southbridge. And with that, I'll hand it over to Chief Woods.
Good evening, members of the council, citizen members, Mr. Town Manager, Ms. Harnois. So if I could, I'll just quickly say, just for opening here, the budget overall is a 4.69% increase, and I know that's a pretty dramatic number when you first look at it, but that number, and I'll go by line, will help me drastically reduce having to come to the council and request transfers. I wanted the council to have a clear picture, so whether you vote yes or no on this, on what it actually costs to run the police department without having to do transfers. The town manager, Ms. Hanois, and I, during our meeting, we talked about, okay, you know, chief, what do you need in certain accounts, and that's what we'll get into the weeds here in a little bit. But, or I could have just come in and said, "No, let's just copy and paste and do a zero budget, and I'll just give just contractual issues per the, you know, per our collective bargaining agreement." So in front of you tonight, and I know again, it's 4.69, 4.7% is a dramatic raise or increase in my budget, but I'm going to elaborate and explain each line item and do with it as you may. But again, the majority of that is for overages for the last 5 or 6 years that have required transfers. Previous chiefs, not only my predecessor, but even before him, I can recall days when they would delay hiring police officers so they'd have money in salary that they could transfer to cover all these overages. And that's a terrible way to budget. I've had conversations with not our Mr. San Angelo, but even Mr. Clark before him about how you budget and how you properly budget, and that's not the correct way to do it. When I took over as chief, I inherited a department that was severely understaffed, and we only had 33 police officers at the time. And in a community our size and our scope of services, it wasn't safe. So I had to, you know, fight and claw with the council and the manager and Mrs. Hanois to try to get us back to where we needed to be, and that leads us to where we are today at 38 police officers. But with all that said, I will go over it line by line like the fire chief did, and I will be happy to answer any questions. The first, the salary and wages, the 5110 account, that's about 2.9% increase. And again, and I already said this once, but I'll say it again, that's contractual. That's the union collective bargaining agreement for raises on July 1. That is a steps. I have 38 police officers. Many of them are not max. We have a relatively young police department. And every step that they get is another raise that they get. There's degree changes. Just this fiscal year alone, starting in July, I've got 6 police officers. Some have gone from having no degree to an associate's degree. Some are going from a bachelor's degree to a master's degree. Some are going from associate's to bachelor's degree. So that's all different variations. In their collective bargaining agreement, they get 10% on their salary for an associate's. They get 20% on a bachelor's, 25% for a master's. So when these police officers go in and get degree status changes, they're required to notify me prior to the start of the budget season, which we're in now, if they anticipate a degree status change between July 1st and next June 30th. If they don't notify me, we don't pay them. But they have to know me. It's an item that I can budget for, and that's where a lot of that 2.9%, or in fact, most of it comes from. Step increases, contractual obligations, percentage increases that were negotiated, and college degree status changes. So that's on the salary. Next one is probably the biggest increase you'll see for all of them. And again, it looks like a rather dramatic number. It's, on my records, it's 63.64%. That's part-time salary. And every single year I have sat in the budget season and I have requested money, increased funding in this. It's always been denied. So this year when I went before Ms. Hanois, the town manager, I explained to them what it would take to keep this account adequately funded so I wouldn't have to continually come to transfers. In 2017, we spent about $61,000. In 2018, it's about $75,000 and some change. 2019, $78,000 and some change. 2020, almost $90,000. And this year, 21, we're on scale to be at 90 grand again out of that part-time salary. This year, in fact, I already did a $25,000 transfer. Now, the issue is with that, with the part-time salary, you got to remember, we pay 13 crossing guards out of that. We pay our custodian out of that. We pay dispatchers to cover weekends. With COVID, for lack of a better way to put this, we got killed or slammed with dispatch coverage with the merger with the fire department and the police department during a pandemic and trying to cover shifts adequately. So yes, I'm going to be seeking reimbursement for a lot of these shifts, but I don't know if we're going to get that when FY22 starts on July 1, who knows what the government's going to tell us at that point. So this number, jumping from $55,000 to a $90,000 line item, is a almost 64% increase. But again, this is an attempt just to reduce me coming back to you and asking for transfers again next year. I've asked for it every single year. It's been denied. This year, if it's denied, I'll be back again next year to do transfers. You're also going to remember too, this part-time salary, it's pretty much been at $55,000 for several years now. And this is way before I had 9 full-time dispatchers. Now we do dispatch police and fire. It's a tremendous amount of work. We've doubled the workload, and we need double the staff. So again, part-time salary, this is probably one of the more important ones that we'll sit here tonight and talk about. Next one for overtime. It's budgeted at a 5% increase. Every single year I'm over on this. In 15, I was at about 124,000, 16, 106, 17, about 157, 18, 142, in 2019, 162, 2000, 157-ish, 21, I'm gonna be okay, I think. But that's because the school department, we do 2 payments of $28,500, which is equal to $57,000 for the year. They cover a school resource officer coverage. The schools and I have a written agreement. They cover most of the cost. That money essentially goes into my overtime account because when I have a police officer covering the schools, I have to cover that police officer's shift. And that's worked out okay, so I'm fine with leaving that at 5%. It's actually only going from 100 to 105 just to cover cost increases with percentage raises per the collective bargaining agreement. So the overtime's fine. I don't anticipate any problems this year. In 2021, FY21, I just spoke with Dr. Villar. We've got another installment coming from them for that school resource officer coverage, and I don't anticipate there'll be any issues with that. Overtime for training stays at 0, and I'll really hit home hard on the ones where there's increases. I know that's concerned to the council, but I'll just quickly elaborate on the overtime training. And a lot of you are veteran counselors, you've heard me say it a million times. That's the 40 hours required of in-service every year for police officers to go off to the academy for continuing education. That's firearms instruction twice a year. This, maybe next year, I'll be coming for an increase in training because of the police reform bill. I've heard every chief in the state say that training is going to increase because of this bill. I have no doubt it will. Right now, I'm leaving it at 65,000 because, quite honestly, no one knows where that police reform bill stands. I realize it's law very soon. Some of our requirements have to be in place by July 1st. All of them have to be in place by December 31st. But there's so much confusion right now in the state. I couldn't possibly give you a number on what I would need to cover all the potential training costs. So 65,000 is the way it is. I felt comfortable leaving that zeroed out. Longevity, very easy to explain. We've got 3 police officers this year that go from 9 years of service to 10 years of service. So they get a $500 longevity check. We've got 1 police officer that is going from 14 years to 15 years. So his longevity increases $500. We've got 2 police officers going from 19 to 20. Their longevity also increases $500. So that account essentially is going up 10.8%. It's a contractual obligation. It was collectively bargained. For those of you that do not know, and I know most of you do, so I apologize for being redundant, but 10 to 14 years of service, police officers get $500 a year. 15 to 19, they get $1,000 a year. 25 to 29, they get $2,000 a year. 30 plus years, they get $2,500 a year. Again, that's contractual. We have to pay that. And those 6 police officers all changed years in longevity. So that's why you see that 10.87% increase. Holiday is another big one, and this is actually quite easy to explain. It's almost 22%. What happens is we have 11 holidays. When you have more police officers, which we now have 38, you have to pay them holiday pay. We have 3 super holidays, which is Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. Depending on how many staff are working, that fluctuates how much of a cost we have to pay out for super holidays. Also, and I did not know, Ms. Hanley, thank you for catching this. I did know, but it slipped my mind. Juneteenth is now also, I believe that's how you say that, another holiday. So we have to budget for that. And that's, again, why our number's going from 126.48, and I'm requesting 154. That includes the 3 super holidays. Usually in the contract, it's 11 holidays, but we added Juneteenth, is our 12th holiday, and then we have those 3 super holidays. And again, it fluctuates on how many people are working, how many people are getting paid that 4 hours extra for working the holidays. Every year I've asked for this one also to be increased, and this is prior to me even knowing that Juneteenth would suddenly become a holiday. In fiscal year 19, I asked for a little over $8,000 in a transfer. Fiscal year 20, I asked for a little over $5,000 in a transfer. And this year, fiscal 21, I'll be coming back to the council this fiscal year because I'm going to would be requesting about 20,000 to cover that Juneteenth holiday. And again, I could not have budgeted for it. I'll be back before you in a couple weeks or months to talk more about the Juneteenth holiday and what that's done for our department. Sick leave, I know this is, I'm going to be over this year on this one also. This is pretty reasonable at 27,000. I felt good leaving it at 0. And we're only over this year, and you guys must get sick of me saying it, but because of COVID. Our sick leave has been crazy with contact tracing. Police officers actually having COVID, including me, as you all know. And they were out for 10 days, and we had to cover those shifts. But I'm pretty confident we're going to get most of that money back. And that's why going into fiscal year 22, I feel like 27,000 is a pretty solid number if it's approved. Witness fees, we've talked about this a bunch of times as far as court. We're pretty fat this year in that, just because there's been no court, they've been closed. They're just finally starting to open up now. In fiscal year 19, we used about 54,000. Fiscal year 20, somewhere around 52,000 bucks. And so again, 57,200 I feel very comfortable with. But again, witness fees I cannot predict. I've had conversations with several councils about this. I don't know how many court appearances my police officers are going to have. If we have one serious crime where we have 10 police officers go to court for a case, that one case could, cost potentially the town, several $1,000s just for one case. So I certainly hope that we don't have any more major cases, but we will. And if there is, I can't budget for it, so I feel comfortable not asking for an increase, but leaving that alone for now. As far as assignments in the 5182, I feel good leaving that at 0%. This includes stipends for our police officers. For our IT, we have a police officer that's like a double agent. And he also, in addition to being a police officer during the day, he does IT work at night, very intelligent kid. It's a steal having him do that job for a $500 stipend because he saves the community thousands and thousands of dollars. Our canine officer that's devoted his entire life to this community, his dog, he volunteers more than most police officers I can think of. $1,000 is a bargain. Our Cops and Kids program director, he's my deputy chief now. The man does a lot of lifting for me, a lot of heavy lifting, doesn't complain, and runs a program essentially. Quite honestly, you could have a full-time employee doing that Cops and Kids job, and he kind of doubles as a Cops and Kids director. Doesn't want to give it up. It's seen way too much success under his leadership. I encourage him to stay involved. So again, that's the stipends for those 3 people, and that's also any officer that's in charge. We try to have a sergeant on every shift. It's the first line of supervision. We absolutely cannot run a shift anymore in this day and age without a supervisor and someone being in charge. And this counts. Some of this money is paid for them for being in charge if they do not hold the rank of sergeant. So again, I feel comfortable leaving that at 0. Sick leave buyback, to the best of my knowledge, nobody's retiring this year, which is a good thing. Uniform allowance, this is easy. I mean, I know it's a 5.91% increase, but if you do the math, it's a contractual increase because our police officers went from getting $1,650 last year, and now on July 1st this year, they get $1,750. So it's a $100 increase, 38 police officers. That's why you see that year-over-year increase, $3,800 from $64,300 to $68,100, 38 police officers. And remember that also includes the uniform allowances for our mechanic, $800, and our animal control officer, $800. So that, again, 5.91, big increase, but when I explain it, I hope that you understand it, and there's really no way we could get around that. Tuition, that's, I feel comfortable with that. That's basically tuition for an academy. It's about, well, it's not about, it is $3,000 per recruit. This is cost for courses. This is any civilian dispatch classes, things of that nature, any type of school. Electricity is 0%, but again, what can I say? It's about, give or take, $1,500 to $2,000 a month. I can't predict that. We've had some savings there with the solar agreement that we've reached with working with Ms. Hinois, but that's way beyond where I'm at. As far as this budget, I just know electricity cost us about, give or take, $1,500 to $2,000 a month. Water and sewer, that was per Karen, and I believe the town manager's instruction on the 4% increase for water and sewer, so I had to do that across the board for that item. Repair and maintenance of motor vehicles, again, I feel comfortable at the 0% increase on that. That's for things like, if we buy things at Southbridge Tire or MHQ, Place Motors, Hillside Collision, various vendors that we use, that we pay out of that account. Data processing is a hot one. It's a big one. We always do transfers out of this account. This year already I've done a $4,000 transfer. Last year I had to do a $2,900 transfer. In 2020 I spent almost $25,000. 2021 already I think we're almost at $23,000. This one needs to go up, and again, this is just to stop me, or at least reduce the amount of times that I have to go before you, which I don't mind doing. I don't mind explaining why we need to do transfers, but this should eliminate transfers from this account. Data processing also is our computer-aided dispatch software. That's almost $18,000 a year. That increased when we merged with the fire department because it's more data. We're using more of the system now. Everybody had to be trained and up-trained on it to handle the fire department. It was one heck of a project to get everybody trained in that, but now we're using more of those services, so of course they charge us more. This is town software that we pay the town clerk for our animal control officer to be able to do licensing for dogs and track dogs. This is all of our internet and spectrum services, which has gone up. This is for a policy that we had purchased, an electronic policy program back in the day when I was a kid. We got handed like a 1,000-page policy manual this big, and they said, study that, memorize it, know what you're doing. Now it's all electronic. This program we now use, so you don't need those big books anymore, and it kind of moving to the next generation where you can look at it on something as simple as a phone app. Under the reform bill, this is going to be huge because we need to have policy testing in place, making sure all of our kids, and I say kids because a lot of them are a lot younger than me, but they all have to know exactly what they're doing, what they're supposed to be doing, when they're supposed to be doing it, and we have to test them on it. CGIS, I mentioned this before when I did a transfer, that's the Criminal Justice Information System. That's so our guys and girls can do their job, run license plates, warrant checks, criminal histories. That just went up. It always seems to go up. We have a fingerprint machine now that's electronic, goes through the state. They gave us the machine originally 10 years ago or so. It was probably a $30,000 machine. They gave one to every single police department, but then when it breaks, they say, oh, we're sorry, you're on your own. You have to maintain that on your own, and only one person can service it. So now we're held to a contract with them. So that's the kind of things that come out of data processing. That's why I've always asked for increases. And again, the number looks big. It's about $12,000 increase, but that should eliminate me coming back to you for data processing again in the future. Repair maintenance of buildings and grounds. That's EDS, Johnson Control, Reno HVAC, any repairs going on in the building. We usually go through this account. Our building's not old. It was put up in '97, but things are starting to kind of, they're going to need repairs. I'm dealing with an HVAC issue now, but this just keeps the building up and running. Copier maintenance, that's contractual services. Any agreements that we have, copy machines, things like that. You got to remember now, we have 2 machines. Our court system, believe it or not, we use 3 different courts, and they all require paper. So the redundancy in the court system is ridiculous, and the amount of paper that we go through, which makes we have to have decent machines, is where I'm going with this. We lease them, this pays the leasing. Once the technology gets out of date, we replace them. It's included in the lease cost. It pays repairs. Some of them can be substantial repairs. They're all covered under the service agreements. There are repair and maintenance of equipment. That's basically anything that's not under contract. That's, like you say, elevator repairs. American Alarm we have at our building does all of our video. We probably have 50 video surveillance cameras in our building, inside and out, our cell block, prisoners, things like that. That $13,000 essentially covers that type of repair and maintenance of communication, again, 0%. This would be like a DNR, our radio vendor, Motorola. We pay some of our IT out of this. If our IT officer who gets that stipend can't handle an IT issue, they're few and far in between, but sometimes they are just way beyond him, and we have to contract out with a private vendor, so we pay them out of that in the past. Gear and uniform, now again, you look at this and it looks like a huge increase. It's 400%. What it comes down to is it's $8,000. I cannot predict it. This is for recruits. This is for holsters. This is for police gear. duty belts. To get someone into an academy, I mentioned earlier, it's about $3,000 in tuition alone. Tack on another $3,000 for equipment, books, uniform. They're trying to make us pay for laptops for them now, but we refused, and we're making them recruit to it now. I don't know how much more I can possibly pay these recruits. It's the only profession in the world, and I don't agree with it, and I wish it would change, but we have to cover all the training costs. You know, my wife's a nurse. She went to nursing school. She took out loans, and she paid them all back. I'm a police officer. I went to school. I have a master's degree. Paid for it all myself. But police training, it's one of the few jobs where you are a police candidate. You are not even considered a police officer, and you got to go to 5 or 6 months of training on the town or the state or whoever you work for is dime. And it just doesn't seem right, but that's unfortunately the way our business runs right now. So again, I don't know who's going to be leaving, when they're going to be leaving, who's going to suddenly retire, who's going to decide they don't want to be a police officer anymore. So that's why I'm looking to add about $8,000 to that account, just again, so I don't have to continue to come back and do transfers. Special services at 0%, that can seem a little bit confusing, but it's really relatively simple. We pay for any physical for new hires, psychological exams, any promotional exams we have, any type of awards that we give out, plaques. Also, this jumped up, I believe it was either last year or the year before, because we have a service called TransUnion, and what we do is we do background checks on all of our people. And this service that we use, it used to be a flat fee, no longer. They got smart, and now they decide they're going to charge us per every time we access it. So again, I don't know how many recruits we're going to have, how many background checks we're going to do, but this breaks down your entire life from the day you got your first credit card until we are here today. And I've also encouraged over the years, and very pleased, the DPW director, the fire chief, they all have candidates now sign off on waivers, and even town hall staff sign off on waivers. And we do checks through this TransUnion program, because the way I look at it is you have a laborer for the DPW that could potentially be driving a $200,000 piece of equipment. You should probably have a good background check done on them. So we now do backgrounds for the majority of new hires in the town. They sign a waiver. It's legal. It's allowed. And some people we've eliminated, or other departments have eliminated, based on information that we found. But again, it's no longer a flat fee. It's now per use, and of course the use has gone up, because I've been hiring a lot of people lately, but not only me. Townwide, we've been hiring more people to fill retirements, vacancies, and people who have resigned for various reasons. Print forms, that's, I believe I just did a transfer. That's 21Ds, parking tickets, things of that nature. To keep it at 0, I'm fine with that. Office supplies, I'm fine with that also. I think that explains itself. The CopyMac machine, the 5421 account's good at $3,000. That, believe it or not, is, and I know I mentioned it earlier with our contractual agreements, but that's paper. We get a great deal on paper from the schools. Thank goodness for Mr. Como. We work with him. That's toner cartridges for printers. And again, like I mentioned earlier, we use the Worcester Court, these Brookfield Court, and the Dudley Court, and they all still want paper. So it's a tremendous amount of paperwork that we push out on a daily basis. 5422 data processing supplies, again, zeros on that. That's computer software, and again, some IT labor comes out of this. This also covers a lot of we have Verizon Air cards we have to have in the computers that are called MDTs, mobile data terminals, in our fleet, and that pays so the guys can and the girls can transfer data back and forth to headquarters, similar to any other MacBook or anything that any of you might have. The janitorial and house supplies, again, self-explanatory. Building and ground maintenance, that's things that we, might need to buy at Morse. Electric wholesales, that's mulch for the building to make it look good. I think, and I've said this probably 1,000 times now, our building is a showpiece in the community. I love it. I think it's a great, it paints our town in a very nice light. It's a great building. I've had more people comment on what that building looks like. And that goes a long way, because, again, it went up in '97. I just think we do a great job maintaining it. The town allows us to keep doing that. Motor vehicle parts and accessories, we always spend this. This is parts for cruisers. This is money that we spend at Consumer Auto Parts, Napa, Plaza, MHQ. This is Goodyear tires, Columbia Ford, things of that nature. We've got an in-house mechanic. The man does a remarkable job, and we always deplete this account. Inspection stickers, again, it is what it is, it's zero. Health supplies, zero. That's veterinary bills, that's ambu bags, medical supplies, things of that nature. We use them often. We used several yesterday, and of course, all those have to be replaced. Chemical and lab, that's our drug testing kits. We've got kits that a lot of our people carry where you can tell what type of narcotic it is. If it's a powdery substance, you want to make sure you know what you're dealing with. And if you think it's heroin and it's really fentanyl, that changes how you handle things. And this test kit allows us to keep our people safe. This is fuming equipment. We have a fingerprint lifting fuming device that we use. This is like the polymer bags that we have to secure evidence for court purposes. So that's chemicals and labs. Safety patrol supplies, this is a hot one too. Every year I overspend it. So here I am before you now. Every year I do transfers. I think from 19 into 20, or 20 into 21, forgive my memory, we doubled this. It went from, I think it was like whatever it was. We might have increased it a little bit, 10,000, increased it by 5,000, something to that effect. But we're always behind, and the reason is, we buy our taser cartridges out of this. They just went up. We buy our ammo out of this. Sky high. You heard me at a previous subcommittee meeting talk about that. So I want to try to get this where I can forecast out where I think the cost of ammo and taser cartridges is going to be, and after July 1st, and have enough to cover the whole year without necessarily having to come back and do a transfer. Controlled substances, $6,000. That buys narcotics. So we can do investigations in the detective unit. This has been $6,000 forever. Drugs have increased in street value, so what we were buying in the 80s with $6,000 is much different than what we're buying now in 2021. But I recently put in for a grant or a donation from the district attorney's office, and he donated $5,000 more to us. That's coming your way. I try to get it on the April 26th agenda. So I'm good with leaving it at zero. I know we had increases in a lot of other places, so I'll leave it alone. I at least want you to know what that account is used for. Prisoner maintenance, this is simple, 0% prisoner meals, and now blankets. We used to have our local cleaner, Martell's, for years and years and years. We used to clean our blankets for a relatively good price. Those days are gone. Now, unfortunately, we have to use a special cleaning, we did use a special cleaning company. Now we have the school with a commercial wash machine that we use, but we have to continue to use special blankets. And thanks to the fire department, we have to have fire retardant blankets, and they can only be cleaned with certain solutions and things like that. So that's what we pay out of that prisoner maintenance account. Parts and accessories, non-vehicle. This is equipment we buy for the animal control officer. This is like dog waste stations we have purchased for her. We have several speed signs, as all of you know. This is for like replacement parts for that. This we've used for like bicycle parts for our police bikes, surveillance camera, memory cards and things of that nature. That's fine, staying at 1,000. Mileage in state travel. This one's kind of tough to predict. It's our Easy Pass. It's our recruits. It depends on what academy they're at. Right now, they're in Western Mass, so it's kind of, if we send them to Boylston, it's no tolls. If we send them to Western Mass, it's tolls. So it's short money, and we can keep it at 500. Mileage in state travel, again, it's very easy to explain. Conferences and meetings, we cut it a couple years ago down to 1,000. I wouldn't recommend cutting it anymore. This is professional development. I often bring my deputy chief with me to police chief trainings. In the law enforcement world, we have what's called executive development. You have to train someone to replace you if you're not that. I'd hate to see what happens if something happened to me. I don't want to know that your police department is in good hands and we can continue operations without skipping a beat. Everybody can be replaced. I'm fully aware of that. And my deputy can run a police department, I believe, with his eyes closed. And a lot of that has to do with this training that we go to together. It's just grooming the next generation to come up for when my time's up. Out-of-state travel, again, like the fire chief had said earlier, we didn't do it this year, so 0% is fine. Dues and subscriptions, this went up. This was one that it doubled from a couple of years ago. It used to be $4,500, then we got it to $9,000, and now it actually 5.5% or 5.56. percent increase because things have gone up. I've already done a transfer this year, I think it was $400 into this account just to cover all the bills. And what's happening is, like the Massachusetts Chiefs of Police Association, fees come out of this. Tip 411, that's almost $4,000 by itself. And for the councils that were elected officials at the time when we started that program, the Substance Abuse Committee initially fronted the cost of that. And then that kind of, well, it's still in existence, but the funding went away. So now we're using, we're covering tip 411 out of my budget, which is fine. We have thousands of users that use that app on their phone and send us tips, and I would never want to get rid of that. The Central Mass Chiefs dues are paid out of this. Our school resource officer has to be a part, especially now with the police reform bill. This is mandated by law. He has to be part of the National Association of School Resource Officers. So we have to pay those fees, or those dues. SEMLEC dues, it's the Central Massachusetts Law Enforcement Council. It's our SWAT team. Our dues that we pay them every year, basically push them a button, I can have a SWAT team here. They come here often. There are 72 cities and towns in Central Mass. Most of them are involved in SEMLEC, and I will say that they come to Southbridge. We're in their top 5 list of call-outs. So we absolutely get our money's worth out of SEMLEC. The Massachusetts Communications Supervisor dues come out of this for our lead dispatcher, and now she has 8 employees under her. She needs to continue with that training and stay in that organization. Our bid lists are on that. For police vehicles, we have to pay a fee every year. Mass Police Accreditation, which you'll be hearing a lot about over the next coming months, working with my police department at becoming an accredited agency. Those dues are on this. So again, we pay a lot of things out of dues and subscriptions. Costs are always going up. Dues are going up. I can't predict those costs, but I feel pretty comfortable going from $900 to $9,500 a little bit to cover all of FY22's expenses. And I believe, after listening to me talk for an hour, I think that's all that I have on my end, and I'll be happy to, I'm sure several of you have questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions by any councils? If there are no questions, Joe is out.
Councilor
Marquetti, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I go over these budgets, and it's sometimes it can be very mind-boggling. I'm not a public budget analyst. All I'm trying to understand here is, are they spending more? Are they spending more of taxpayer money, or are they spending less of taxpayer money? And if it's more, I'm likely to vote against it, because that's me. I'm a fiscal conservative, and I want to keep spending as low as I can for the taxpayer. But I understand what level service means. You were talking about it early, Councilor. I get it. Costs go up, and they could be level funding it, but the cost has gone up. There's costs like higher salaries, union increases, higher maintenance costs, and I understand that. But as I said, I'm a fiscal conservative. That's what I ran on. That's what I'm trying to hold the line on spending. That's all I'm trying to do. You hold the line on spending, you hold the line on taxes. Am I trying to cut 20% out of their budget? No, but I don't think it's unreasonable to cut, 1 or 2%. If the town manager doesn't like that amount, well, that's the fine art of compromise, I guess. But I'll just leave it at that. I'm not going to go line by line here. But just like us to hold the line on spending, that's all. Thank you.
Any other discussion? No? Mr. Julian?
Through you to the chief. I don't know if I missed it in your discussion. Do you have money in here for new cruisers this year?
It's capital.
That's all in capital?
If I could, through the chair, yes, Mr. Julian, that's going to be a capital request. Within a couple of weeks, we're going to be having those meetings.
And how many are you going to try and get?
I'm requesting 2.
2? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Just a quick comment. I do agree with Councilor Marquetti. Is every budget perfect? And There's nothing in there that you would cut out. But the question that constantly comes to the forefront is, if we take the police budget, we say, what does it cost to fight crime? What does it cost to keep the streets safe? And I got to be honest with you, I really don't know. Outside of asking an expert, like chief or somebody in the field, when we have these other discussions during the year, and we say, what's the crime rate? Did the crime rate go up? Did the crime rate go down? Are we putting our money in the right place? I do believe that there is room for cutting. I'm not a fan of cutting police department, not $1. That's just my thing, that I've always been a public safety guy. I'd rather have a safe town and run a sweeper a little less and have maybe a less clean town, but be safe in your homes. But when you look at different departments and you prioritize, my cuts wouldn't be in this department. When you have a fire department at one time lost 14 men, and this town's been struggling to get it back up to staff, I'm not sure that would be the department I'd go after, but there are things in other departments that I probably think when I look at town hall. Is every person priceless and we need everyone to run each and every office? Go into these offices as a citizen, deal with them, and you'll come out with an opinion as a citizen, what's needed and what's not needed. But then we as councilors have to put it all together, connect the dots. We have a town manager that recommends with department heads on what it takes to run their departments. Look at the economic development department. How much did it cost to run the economic development department? At one point, I mean, we have one less person at the top, there was a big number, and you said, well, what's the delivery on it? And if you look at some of the grants that come in through this department, I remember we didn't have an economic development department, and we didn't have a subcommittee. Actually, it started my last year on council of the planning development. It's all a prioritization. It's all in the eye of the beholder. It's not a right or wrong. The town manager can tell us his recommendation, and maybe we disagree. Then let's amend it. I won't have a problem amending some things at the main meeting. But again, what does it cost to run these departments? It's the million-dollar question, and I don't know if anybody really has the best answer, but we're supposed to work collectively to get it done. It's tough. It's tough. Any other discussion on the budget, on this agenda item? No. If not, roll call. Adams?
Yes.
Julian?
Yes.
Catrona?
Yes.
Lazo, yes. 4-0. Moving on to agenda, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second by Adams. Roll call. Adams? Julian?
Yes.
Catrona?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Thank you very much, Town Manager, Finance Director, and Department Heads. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.